To start, I think we're in agreement that young men are moving to the right.
I think if you're denying that, you're just denying data.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vox at Washington Post, like everybody's bringing it up. I think the question is why, but you agree young men are going rightward. So I guess is there a disagreement on why it's happening, or do we actually agree why it's happening? I mean, what's your view on why young men are basically moving over?
I think as a liberal, I'll be very clear, I am liberal. And I spent the last several months being asked this question by liberals and Democrats. I think the answer is that the left kind of hates and fears masculinity broadly. I think it doesn't like it. And I think you can see that in the fact, I don't know if you know this, the APA, it's the American Psychiatric Association. This year they came out with rules and guides about how to treat men in therapy differently than women, and like tricks and stuff that they need to be aware of, right? And it's like, it shouldn't be like 2025 where we're coming out with this stuff. I think the left has just broadly neglected the male issue because it's been what's the word? Not politically correct to talk about.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And what say you, sir? Would you agree with that?
To some degree, yeah. I think men are moving to the right because men are more rational than women. You know, young men are shifting away because left-wing ideologies are kind of disconnected. They feel kind of disconnected from reality. You know, we're living in a society where, you know, we're having economic stresses, we're having, you know, geopolitical stresses, and men are seeking, you know, pragmatic solutions to like economic and social changes, valuing like free expression and preferring like empowerment over this like collective guilt that seems to be like following us around like a cloud. So
indeed. What would you say to that before I jump in? He said
men are more rational than women.
Yeah, and liberal ideologies are, how did you describe it? Not rational or not?
Yeah, it seems like young men are experiencing sort of like a disconnect from like left-wing political narratives. Like it's not like they don't make sense to especially young men and even older men like myself. Like starting a family, I'm looking at what world my young men are going to have to grow up in, what world my children are going to have to grow up in.
Yeah, when I look at young men and young women especially, I think most people are not very rational. I don't really give rational points to most people or most voters in general. I think women are like influenced a lot, whether they like it or not, by things like hormones, right? I think women's like hormonal fluctuation is daily, men's are like monthly. But at the same time, you know, you'll point to like women like crying maybe over something that they shouldn't cry about, or being soft and maybe enabling in an area that they shouldn't be. But then you'll see men like punching holes in walls and like doing crime. And so this argument that like men are just more rational than women, it's like, well, no, like different emotional systems and different arguments appeal to each of these groups because each of these groups are fundamentally self-interested. And I think what's failed on the left is to make any appeal to anything for young men. The left hasn't offered young men anything. There's nothing that would be appealing to a young man when you look at left policy. But there's lots of things that are appealing to young women. And so I think if Democrats want to talk to young men, they have to talk to young men. But I don't think it falls as simply down to like rational versus irrational. I think that's like a flattening of the nuance.